I probably like more men in my actual real life than I like women. I find women really quite difficult. I think everyone should have the freedom to do whatever they want in their own homes. And I think when you come out onto the street, you have a deal with the rest of us. I have views on the Kardashians having surrogates.
You're a contrarian, aren't you?
When I see someone in a niqab or fully covered, I make sure I try and look at their eyes and smile. But I also say, free your face, every time that I see somebody in a face covering. I think Islam is a death cult. It's a very dangerous ideology. It's a religion, but I don't think it is a religion. I think it is an ideology. It's just so dangerous. These women wrote to me about their lives behind the niqab, never feeling the sun on their face. They've got to marry their cousin. For posh middle-class dinner set people, brown people can't be expected to behave the same as us, because ultimately they're not the same. I couldn't possibly say, I am proud to be ethnically English. I'm not under any illusion about women. I'm just a women's rights campaigner. I have a lot of men in my life and I love them dearly, and I've always found it easier to relate to men.
Are you basically a sort of old-fashioned conservative? Are you a fascist? I'm Jonathan Sacerdoti. Kellie-Jay Keen, welcome. Thank you for joining me here. It's really good to see you. Beautiful outfit, lovely Union Jacks. Are you a fascist?
Only on a Thursday. No, of course not. No, I'm a very proud, I'm 96% English. So yeah,
But is that like a DNA test?
Yeah, I did a DNA. No, I did it for some other reasons, but it was interesting. And obviously Swedish is the other part.
96?
96.
That's pretty impressive.
It's quite impressive, yeah.
So can you trace back like your lineage quite some time aside from the DNA test?
I don't think so, because we were very poor. So I don't think there's too much of that. My husband, though, his family name is in the Doomsday Book. So yeah. But I think they were labourers on the land as opposed to the landowners, because he's also very poor.
Do you think that matters, the genetic indigeneity?
No, I don't. And I've been tested on this, because I think, I mean, I do really like being English, British, but I've always said English. Before it was kind of a controversial sort of political statement. I've always said I was English. But
So you meaning that basically you're ethnically English? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, but yes, that is what I'm saying. But I also, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And so I'm curious, because I think about this sometimes. I'm obviously not ethnically English. My background is my father was Italian and moved here from Italy, and my mother's family, 1 and 2 generations back, depending on which parent, came from sort of Eastern Europe, Ukraine, like many Jewish people. So, but I grew up here. I feel like British through and through. I'm very proud of this country and everything, but I know I'm not ethnically, if you did my DNA test, it wouldn't show anything like yours. So how do you think that fits in with the current tensions going on here?
That's a really interesting question. I think the fact that you said your father was Italian, and I think if we look, there's like a guilt, shame, weird thing that goes on in this country that doesn't go on in other countries. If you said to someone in Italy, if you went to Sorrento and you're like, are you Italian? Yes, I'm Italian. We're all Italian. My grandmother's everyone's Italian. And that would just be it. And that would be a source of pride. And isn't that wonderful? I know how to make a great bolognese, kind of. It would just be great. And we don't have that. And I think I even carry some of that. So
I can see from the outfit.
Yeah. This gets so many remarks and smiles. It's crazy. It's a proper act of defiance, apparently. But I think if you take the English thing, reminds me of the other issue that I talk about, which is like, who is a woman? What is a woman? And I think if you take away someone's belonging, then they have nothing to defend. And I think that's what's happened. That English, you're allowed to be Scottish, you're allowed to be Welsh, you're allowed to be Irish. Northern Ireland obviously is another issue, but not English, not so much. And I guess I probably don't have the answers as to why, but I do know that is how it feels.
And that makes you feel prouder to state it.
Yeah, pride is a funny thing, isn't it? Like, what are you really proud of? That you were born somewhere, and that your ethnicity is something that's a bizarre thing to be proud of. But I think the fact that we're not allowed to be proud of it makes me think, well, let's ask some questions about that, shall we?
And you're right, I think it is weird to be proud of something completely out of your control. But on the other hand, ethnic minorities are often encouraged to be proud of those things. And gay people are encouraged to be proud of being gay. And yet we're told constantly you can't have affected that. It's innate or out of your control. So why shouldn't you be proud of your English ethnicity, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I still can't get to the point where if I link Englishness to ethnicity, which if it's not ethnicity, what is it? But though all those words in a sentence together, I couldn't possibly say I am proud to be ethnically English, because that just feels very wrong. I don't know if I can articulate why, but that just feels an odd thing that I would say. But if someone said I'm proud to be Indian, my parents are Indian, I wouldn't say, well, what a crazy thing to say.
If I told you I was proud to be ethnically Jewish?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think anyone would think that was an odd thing to say at all. But ethnically English is weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And you said it's turned into an act of defiance to wear clothes like that and to wave the flag. And it has recently. This whole movement of flag waving here in the UK has become really controversial. The thing I think is interesting is I saw all these stories on the news. I was watching one on Sky News recently, and they were talking about, they did a whole very po-faced, serious report on these people putting up British flags in Britain. And fair enough, there is a story to it, who's behind it. I never saw them do that over the last 2 years about the thousands of Palestinian flags that I saw go up around Britain. They didn't once run a story about how interesting it was or who was behind it, or who gave them the flags. Why do you think that is, that the British flag in Britain is more controversial than the flag of the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization?
I think ultimately it comes down to genuine middle-class racism, and let me qualify that. Brown people, like for posh middle-class dinner set people, brown people can't be expected to behave the same as us, because ultimately they're not the same. Now, the reason I say that is because they're forgiven really terrible bad behavior. They forgive it on the basis that those people aren't white, that they wouldn't do if they were white. And it comes down to class. It's like white people badly behave, well, they must be scummy. But if brown people do it, it's not seen as the same. And I can only say that that comes down to the sort of the lens of racism, because I have expectations of a person no matter what they look like, where they come from. I expect them to behave in a certain way. And if I don't, and the difference between behaving and not behaving and what my expectations is the colour of their skin, then surely I'm a racist.
I agree with that. I wonder if you can make an exception, though, for a generalized idea. It's just a thought experiment. Maybe what they're saying is that a lot of people from a culturally different background might have different behaviors. And so when we look at some of the controversies in this country that have centered over race, things like the so-called Asian grooming gangs, which I find a really weird euphemism, sounds like a Korean hairdresser's. They are trying to suggest on the so-called right that it is a cultural difference and that it is predominantly Pakistani Muslim men who are carrying out those crimes. Not that all Pakistani Muslim men do, but the majority of those who are doing that were. And maybe you're saying that on the left, they have a similar attitude and saying, well, brown people aren't expected to behave the same. Is there a bit of crossover? That's what I'm trying to get. I haven't expressed it brilliantly.
Well, I think on the right, saying that, I mean, I don't know, should we divide on those? People that say it is a cultural thing are right, it is. And I think that you have the men that did it, and you have the families that know that the men were doing it, and you have the communities that know the families of the men that were doing it. I think it was known. On an anecdotal level, I talked to a man in Speaker's Corner quite recently who started talking about mothers are to blame for children not wearing enough clothes because men will look at those children and have paedophilic thoughts.
Only perverts.
Yeah, well, he was saying that there's so many of those perverts around that if you don't dress your child appropriately, I don't even know what he was meaning appropriately, but if you don't cover your children up, then you're basically inviting paedophiles to have fantasies about your children. Now, I think that thinking comes from a conversation where they say about the English girls, the 12-year-olds, because we extended it to sort of 12 and 13-year-old victims of Pakistani Muslim paedophile rape gangs. And I think that they've been told that it's the girls' fault and the mother's fault of those girls who weren't looking after them, and their men aren't with those girls, and what did anyone expect? So I think that's what I think of people on the right, that they are right to say that it's a cultural difference. And as of people on the left, I think it's also right that they think it's a cultural difference and those people can't be expected to behave. And we don't want to mark those. We don't want to mark every Pakistani because all men do it. So they dilute it that way. So they use their own little tactics. And I don't think the people on the right are wrong, but they both see that culture as different because it is.
So maybe the distinction here is back to your 96% English DNA. It's not about their DNA and it's not about their brown skin, but it's not inaccurate, you're saying, to say that it is a cultural difference because of their background and family and where they come from in the world that has perhaps given them different values that encourage them to justify a behavior that here in this country is criminal, illegal, abusive, etc. So it's not about the 98% or 96% or the DNA or the color of the skin,
No.
but there might be some correlation.
I think the left see things through a lens of race. And obviously some people on the right see things through the lens of race. And racist people definitely see things through the lens of race. And then they're the rest of us that don't see things through the lens of race. And I would say that we were in a place in this country predominantly where we didn't do that, but people on the left did, and I don't know that we knew that. And they've had the narrative of, you know, even Asian grooming gangs. It wasn't Asian grooming gangs. Who gave them that term? It wasn't me. It wasn't you.
Your point is that it's not that they're Asian that is the issue here.
It's not a load of Chinese men, is it? You know,
Well, South Asia. But the point, I suppose, is either way. Anyway, it's not the fact that they're Asian.
No.
It is the cultural thing that you
Yes.
think has given them that framework.
I think cousin marriage comes from misogyny. You know, the fact I did something about Free Your Face, which was to do with the Niqab, and I got letters from so many incredibly intelligent, articulate. I mean, I wonder if Arabic lends itself to a particular way of speaking that's just quite poetic. But these women wrote to me about their lives behind the Niqab, never feeling the sun on their face. And that they have to ask, in order to get married in Saudi Arabia, they have to ask their cousin if they're allowed to marry this other person. And if not, they've got to marry their cousin.
You know, I spoke with Yasmin Mohammed about this, and she's worn the niqab. And I asked her, because I saw someone in the local Sainsbury's dressed full niqab. In fact, I couldn't see it. There wasn't even a slit, nothing. And I said it terrified me to see it. But what terrifies me more is that nobody else in Sainsbury's batted an eyelid. And she said, well, imagine what it's like inside there. She said, children run away from you and scream because it's instinctive. And she said, and then you smile at them to make them feel better and they can't see.
No.
So she said it's the assumption that there's something wrong with criticizing it that is the problem.
Yeah. Well, I know. So the way it went is I was at Speaker's Corner. I saw two young women, pretty sure they were young, wearing it. And I just said, on camera, I didn't know I was on camera, but the lady that had the camera, she was just brilliant. And I just said, free your faces, ladies, liberate yourselves, free your faces. And I think it was viewed about 25 million times on Twitter, and it went viral in Saudi Arabia and in loads of different countries. So now I have testimonies from all over the Middle East, which is weird because I frequently got called Islamophobic.
So people in Saudi Arabia, women, are writing to you in praise of that video.
Yeah. Yes. They didn't see that I was telling them that I was an authoritarian, also saying you should do this. They saw that somebody was recognizing that they need to be free. And so now I do two things. Number one, when I see someone in a niqab or fully covered, I make sure I try and look at their eyes and smile, because I want that woman to feel that she is not different to me. she's just behind a fabric prison. And I wanted to know that the intention might be isolation, but I don't want her to feel isolated. So I will always look and smile. And I know sometimes these women don't necessarily like a blonde white woman. They might already have some preconceived ideas because they're not able to mix in society. So I'm happy that some of them might not like me very much. But I also say free your face every time that I see somebody in a face covering.
What happens?
Well, often I just do it and leave because I did it to I did it to a family in Hyde Park, and there was a man and he sat, and the girls looked quite small. So I think maybe one of them was like 10 or 11. Maybe one was about 14, and there was his wife. This is, I assume, and then there was a little boy who was free to wear whatever he wanted. So I just went over and I said, free your faces, ladies. You don't have to be covered because he's not. And just pointed at him and then left, because all I want to do is I want to mark a place in that woman's life that somebody said it's not okay. I see you. I recognize you. I know I see you is like, I see you. It's all, but yeah.
So the Meghan Markle
I
podcast.
just, but I want them to have a place, a timestamp where somebody said, I recognize you. It's not okay. So that when that woman questions it herself, or maybe she already has, maybe she realizes that not ever feeling the sun on her face is like not a life that anyone would choose. I wanted to know that somebody cared enough to say something. So that's why I do it.
And do you think they take it that way?
I have no idea. Often I get quite emotive things, and sometimes they're really big, terribly tragic stories. But it's the turn of phrase sometimes of a simple sentence that will get you. And one of the women wrote to me, she said, I've never felt the sun on my face since I was 12. I'm not even allowed to go out in the garden with my face uncovered because just in case a neighbour sees me. And she said that all of her memories are within the four walls. She's got no memories outside of her house. But when her family go away, she is able to go to the local cafe and buy something, like still fully covered, and buy something. And she said, that's the greatest adventure of my life. And I was, oh, and those kind of, that we can feel that. That's quite a powerful thing to say. And so she wrote to me to thank me that I recognise that it's wrong and that these women are living in this fabric prison that they can never escape. So that's why I say it, because nobody else has said to that woman, that's terrible.
And do other people write to you from the opposite perspective?
Yeah, quite a few men write to me.
Men, but any women?
To say that I choose it, I possibly have. I share them all. I think it's important. I set myself up for this particular issue to be a vehicle through which women can send anonymous messages, and I publish. So yeah, I would.
And for viewers, where do you publish that?
letwomenspeak.org /free your face. I do it there, but also on Twitter. So I try and publish as many as come up. And it comes in sort of spurts and starts.
What an absolute hero or heroine. No, seriously. How did this happen? How did
it?
No, all of this.
Oh, this?
Not the clothes, the person. Like, lots of people think this stuff, but not many people walk around the street and say, free your face, or take out a billboard that says adult human female. What happened?
I think I have quite a keen sense of justice, and a huge ego. So the two combined means I can go and say the things that people shouldn't. I think I've always been that person that I refuse to keep what I want to say in my mouth, and I'll just say it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Well, I think we know, actually. Maybe that's a bad thing to say with what happened to Charlie Kirk. But if we don't say it, we go insane.
Well, does that scare you?
Yes. I mean, we don't live in America.
You did a tour of America.
I did, yeah, in 2022. I didn't go to Portland because there was someone who wanted to kill me, so I didn't go there.
Someone you knew wanted to kill you.
He'd better go fund me for weapons on,
How much did he make?
I don't know. How much do you need for a gun? One bullet, one gun. I mean, you don't need much in America. And I thought I was going to lose my life in New Zealand.
What happened?
So I went to Australia, did a tour of Australia. And when I was in Melbourne, well, actually, like way back since I started this, I've been called a Nazi and a fascist. And first of all, it's transphobic, then it's racist, then it's Nazi. Like there's been a nice evolution of things to try and silence me, which I just think, like, call me what you like. I'll wear whatever label if I can speak the truth. I don't really care what people I don't care about call me. And that will probably even include like really nice things as well. Like you can't let these people, you can't let it enter you in any sort of way. Like if I believed that I was this, I'd just be an idiot. But anyway, so I can't be a hero or a villain. I just have to do whatever I want to do. But when I was going over to Australia and New Zealand, well, they had a high court injunction trying to stop me from getting in the country because I was such a terrible person. I did the tour of Australia where when I was doing an event here, 2 groups of people along, there were literally a group of people calling themselves Nazis. They were very camp, but they called themselves Nazis.
Well, Hitler was quite camp.
Yeah, probably. Well, maybe they were then. And we thought they were Antifa for a start. Like when the security had said, oh, there's these people in black with black coverings, black blah, blah, blah. So there was that was a big controversy. So, but by the time I got to New Zealand, where they cancelled my hotel, they kept me, when I arrived in the country, they searched my bags for about 2.5 hours.
What were they looking for?
Nothing. They were just looking to annoy me because they didn't search me.
Well, they were looking for like violent opinions.
Yeah, probably. Now, I've been touring Australia for about 3 weeks by then, so with no washing done. And so they were putting like all my dirty linen out, like spread it all over the tables. It was, it was just horrible. And then my hotel had been cancelled on my way over. Anyway, get to the point. So I did an event in Auckland, and the police were supposed to be there. And when we got there was about 2,000 people, which it could have been 1,000 to 3,000, but we'll say 2,000. And they all had signs like Posie Parker's a fascist, stomp on a turf, all the nice, friendly, supportive things. And then I got souped where someone tipped soup on my head, and then the mob came. They wanted blood because that's how the mob works. Like a group of people just turns into just a single kind of cell amoeba type thing, and I thought they were going to kill me. And so there was a point at which, and I had 10 bodyguards, so they just linked around me. So I was in there, got souped, and then we were waiting for the police to come and make sure I could get out, and all the other women. And the security guard just said, "The police aren't coming." And I was like, oh, that's quite serious. And they were like, yeah, the police aren't coming. And so they put a group around me of 10, all linking arms. I was in the middle. And then we had to get through that crowd of people to the outside of the park. And at one point, I started falling to the floor, and I got to about 45 degrees. And I was like, Kellie-Jay, if you don't get yourself right now, you'll die. You'll get to the floor, and it doesn't even matter whether it was a friendly crowd, and it wasn't. I'll get trampled to death, and I'll never see my kids and my husband. And I managed to get up, and then you just do one foot in front of the other. And then eventually when we got right to the outside, the police were there, and they put me in a police car, and I had to go into armed protection. And most of the police didn't even know where I was. It was just a couple of officers, and I was in armed protection until I left the country. So yeah, I had an armed escort to the airport, through the airport, and then I flew on Dubai Airlines, Emirates. Oh, it was so lovely.
What's the stewardess uniform?
What, Emirates? Oh, I have no idea. Probably something.
Did you tell them to?
No, I did not. No, they didn't cover their faces.
No, they don't. That's true.
No.
You carried on?
Why?
Why?
Because I think I'm more afraid of what happens if I don't. Like, if I don't carry on. There are plenty of people in this space now that I've managed to shift a bit of the Overton window, but they don't hold the line. quite so much. My view is that there shouldn't be a man in cross-dressing in a school. There shouldn't be a man cross-dressing in the NHS or in the police.
Why?
Because that significantly changes the culture of any place. If you have somebody who is pretending to be the opposite sex. For a start, I think most men are motivated by fetish.
But wait, let me pause.
Yes,
I don't want to be flippant here, but you're wearing trousers.
I am.
Why can't a man wear a dress?
Because I'm not motivated by a fetish wearing trousers.
And so can a man that isn't motivated by a fetish wear a dress in the civil service?
Yeah, but you won't find one. I think when we were younger, David Beckham wore a sarong. I don't think anyone thought he was doing it for a fetish. I think you can tell.
Kilts?
Yeah, I think you can
Ethnic
tell.
Scots, ethnic Scots.
Yeah.
Kilts, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay,
And
so it's about the intention, basically.
Yeah, and we know the intention. We can feel the intention. Like, you don't have to be a genius. You can feel it more than you can intellectually recognize it.
Do you think there are people, maybe a very small number, who aren't doing it out of a fetish, but they honestly believe inside themselves that they're women? They're not women, but they believe it.
Grown heterosexual men, no.
I don't know if they're heterosexual. Just
So there are two.
could you imagine a psychology where somebody erroneously believes something about their physical being that is false?
Yes, but I think we are so far into transgenderism. We know of old, before porn and before we recognize fetish. We know that some people didn't fit into very rigid roles, and in order not to fit in that rigid role, they would then be a third. But like there were no old, like, people. Oh, trans has always existed. Well, there were no men genuinely accepted as women. They just had a different role to other men. So no, I really don't think so. I think maybe we're creating some of those people because we've indoctrinated them as children. I mean, you can never say absolutely.
I must say, I tend to agree with most of what you say on this topic, but I have met people years ago, before this was a really sort of big trend, who, yeah, I believed that they believed in the situation that they were physically a man but felt totally a woman. I consider it a psychological issue that was how they are, because I also know women who predominantly, sometimes men, who think they are fat and they are dangerously skinny, and yet they keep starving themselves. So there are psychological conditions that I'm aware of where people genuinely believe something which is wrong, and I wouldn't fix that problem by affirming it, but I think there are some people. No, I mean, if you think back 20-30 years about people who were what we called back then transsexual, you still don't think any of them were
No,
totally honest in what they're saying?
no, no. And I don't think they believe the things they're saying either. I think if you genuinely believed that you were a woman, you wouldn't feel the need to wear womanhood in order to prove it to other people. No. I think that, like, I'm a woman. I have a woman's sexuality and a woman's kind of frame of reference and woman's hormones, and so I don't really understand the power of a man's sexuality, but I believe it's pretty powerful. You know, we are human beings, we're mammals, we're supposed to procreate. Clearly not all of us do, not all of us want to, and it's not possible for everybody. And clearly 2 women, 2 men, they can't procreate together. Like, I get it. We deviate from that. But the compulsion of our bodies is the whole point of our species is to procreate. So it has to be super, super powerful, men's sexuality, to be informed and motivated and the drivers in things that they do. And now we kind of put society around it, and we hopefully we make you a little less driven by that particular thing. But to think that somebody will try and wear an identity and it's not sexually motivated, No, I don't think so.
And does that apply for other identities then that aren't to do with gender?
Well, we know that the man who cut off both of his legs, that's a sexually motivated. People, serial killers are sexually motivated. Like, it might be disordered,
Yeah.
but I think when I talk to women about this, they have no concept of what fetish will do. Like, maybe it was because I watched a program when I was about 15 when Channel 4 first came out, and it was about fetish and a man like grating his penis. Like, you know, I can't possibly get on board with that. I don't really understand it, but I know that what happened is the pathways to his sexual pleasure kind of went wrong somewhere, and his pleasure was through kind of non-sexual activity that was pain.
Aren't there women who are aroused by fetish?
Yeah, just not as many by a country.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, is it exclusively male, do you think?
I don't think it's exclusively male, but I have yet to read of a single anecdotal case of a woman being motivated by sexual fetish in order to dress as a man. Broadly, I think women are escaping something. They're moving away from something, and men are moving towards something.
So in a way, transgender or sexualism, in your perception, is something which is different. The condition is entirely different for men and for women.
Yes, which is why maybe bringing it under a broad umbrella term like transgenderism is nonsensical. Because I think, some young women are narcissistic, sociopaths. I think that can put you into a place like anorexia is kind of narcissist in its very essence, that you think people are worried about you all the time. But I think for women it can be a traumatic thing. I think sometimes you're not accepted into like the girl group, so you're that, right, okay, well, I'm going to control this and I'm going to opt out, and then I can't be painfully ostracized from that particular group.
I mean, your positions are really well known on this and very clear and strong and reasoned. And there are people who argue that it's just not nice to be that way, and it's not nice to the people who have that condition. Do you care?
My job is not to make people who have that condition feel nice. My job is to try and stop anybody else going down that particular pathway of self-destruction. Because once you mess around with your hormones, there's no reversing it. One of the greatest things we get to do as adults, without wanting to be too graphic, is to have sex. Like, it's a pretty great, wonderful thing to do. Why would anyone want to encourage people to disrupt their bodies in a way that they can no longer do that? That's just insane.
Do you think we've got through that moment, or are starting to come through that moment in our current era? Because, it seemed to be an insanity that took over. And then there were some important moments, for example, the court findings and what have you. Or is this a battle that will last forever?
I don't think it'll last forever. I think there will be new, more destructive battles that we'll have to fight. So I don't think it will last forever. I think maybe people always want to modify their bodies. You have women that modify their breasts to the point that they can't wear clothes. It's just like we are always going to do things like that. But I think there's other things on the horizon, that like transhumanism and AI. Oh, so that's like the dystopian idea of not existing in your own body, like, for want of a better expression, uploading yourself or trying to live forever. Crazy things.
As a sort of digital copy of
Mm,
your
yeah,
consciousness.
yeah.
Okay. I'm guessing you're not signing up to that.
No,
Okay.
no. I'm quite happy not to live I can't think of anything worse.
I'm just fascinated by how you came to do all this, because it's the only way I've known of you. We don't know each other aside from this. And I have a huge admiration for people who put themselves out there in danger, as you've said, but not just about danger, and really stand up for things they believe. And obviously, when I agree with them, I have more admiration for them. But generally speaking, I think there's something quite unique about those people. And so you said, I'm not going to stop, because even though there are more people doing it, they don't hold the line, I think is what you said. You have a zeal, basically, right? You're on a mission.
Yeah, I think yes. am I on a mission? It doesn't feel like I'm on a mission, but I guess you could characterize it like that. I just think it's wrong. I just think it's wrong. And
What's wrong?
the lie of transgenderism.
But it's not just transgenderism. You've moved on to niqabs.
Well, I think the niqab thing, I mean, I was a great fan of Christopher Hitchens, so I think that came before, but I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe it's the truth, justice. It's almost like the things I'm most interested in are the things that most people won't talk about. And I think they need to be talked about. And I think you need somebody to be able to talk in very short sentences, like free your face. That just happened. I saw those two women. That's the first thing that came out of my mouth. Like, free your face, ladies. That wasn't like, I didn't sit down with a committee and try and find the best thing to say.
So you're a great communicator. You're great at branding. I mean, I can see that. and similarly, like, Posie Parker, this invention. You're not called Posie Parker. The clothes. Did you always dress like this?
I'd probably, yeah. I remember wearing a naff onesie when I was about sort of 14 that was all blue at the back and it was red on one side, and I think I'm probably just a big attention seeker, so as long as people were talking about me, I didn't really care what they were saying.
So earlier you said, like, I've got a massive ego. I thought that was actually a brag, because I thought that was your way of trying to detract from what this really is. But you really saying you're just like a show off, you like people seeing you, and yes, you believe in this stuff, but actually it's your ego, it's wanting to be seen.
No, my ego facilitates what I need to do. It's not like I'm not looking for a way to do that. And ego is a complicated thing. It's not just about being a crazy confident show off. You don't have to be a psychologist to know that there's obviously a flip side to your ego, and there's a reason that you have an ego, and so it's a protection. But I think it will take someone like me to be able to say the things that need to be said. Like, you have to be able to take it that a lot of people are not going to like you. And I guess I don't mind.
But are you, for example, anti-Islam? Or is it just anti-niqab?
No, I think Islam is a death cult. It's a very dangerous ideology. And it's, I'm sure I don't need to tell you, it's a religion, but I don't think it is a religion. I think it is an ideology. I think it's a political cult. It's just so dangerous.
Because of what? What's so fundamentally dangerous about it, in your opinion? What do you think is its at the core of its danger?
Well, I think literally convert or die. I think the people in it are. I think it just takes away joy. I don't think it's happy. I know that sounds like probably really silly, but there's no singing, there's no parties, there's no enjoyment.
There is in the afterlife, isn't there?
I've read the Quran.
Me too.
No.
Got some favourite bits in there. No, okay. Well, so me too. By the way, what was your impression when you first read it?
Well, I think there's so much. It's overtly violent. It's more that, like, the Bible, I think, because I did a theology degree, so the Bible is just full of nice lessons and maybe not so nice things, but the overwhelming, especially New Testament, is kind of love, acceptance, tolerance. And it doesn't say, get up at this time of day, do this. It's not prescriptive. It treats the kind of the believer as a human being, and this is going to help you. I just felt the Quran and Islam as a whole is just a consistent indoctrination, just repeated and repeated and repeated. And I think it treats the followers as infants who don't have free will, and they just have to. This is how you get through every day. I mean, that's insane. And obviously, if you're reading things that you have to say aloud and repeat, then it's just an indoctrination.
Are you against all organised religions?
No. I used to be an anti-theist.
And now you're wearing a cross.
And now I'm wearing a cross.
Well, more than one, actually, but one, yeah.
Well, this one.
No, I meant the flag is.
Oh, yeah.
3 crosses, I think. Yeah.
I'm wearing a cross because I I'm not religious. I don't think I wish I could have faith, but I don't think I can. I think there are some people that just won't find it, and I think I'm one of them. And but I do think we have a God-shaped hole in this country, which is why we're in the mess that we're in. Like, I'm an atheist, but it was comfortable to grow up as an atheist because most people weren't.
You're a contrarian, aren't you?
Probably.
Yeah, but not. I don't mean that rudely. I mean, lots of us are in some ways, but it's perhaps a healthy thing because you question dogma, you question what you're told to believe, and then when you find it lacking, you want to tell the world, right?
Yes.
And that's who Posie Parker is. But why call yourself Posie Parker?
Oh, so I joined a website called Mumsnet, and you had to have a anonymous name. And I was expecting my 4th baby, and the list of girls' names included Posie and Parker, and he was a boy. And so I just picked the first 2 names, and it sounded quite good. That's it. Nothing kind of remotely
Yeah, that's
brilliant.
boring story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Actually, I should have known that. But
Well, everything I've done that seems to be brilliant is kind of through necessity or accident. Like, it's not like the billboard, it wasn't like I knew that it was going to be this kind of rallying cry. I just thought I want it to be black and white. I want it to look like the sort of letters that you have at infant school when you first learn to read. And so they had to be really clear letters. And I just found this particular font, and I used this dictionary definition from Google, so I could literally copy and paste the phonetic spelling of the word woman. And that's where it came from. And I knew that adult human female sounded better than adult female human, which was in most dictionaries. So
is it still, what do they have now in the dictionary?
I think
Since you did that with it.
yeah, well, they've changed it on Google now. They've
Yeah.
changed it around. So yeah. So when I say it was a Google definition, and people go, I don't think so. And but yeah, it
That was
was.
before Google got woke, then,
Yeah.
basically, yeah.
Mm.
That's really interesting. So what's next? I mean, you said there are much bigger problems ahead. I mean, you talked about like I can't remember what you called it,
Transhumanism.
transhumanism. I think that's for another day.
Yes, let's not go.
But I think your mission on Islam, I mean, from somebody who got threatened and nearly lost their life more than once campaigning on women's issues against the trans agenda, you might have gone for something a little bit safer or easier in life, but you've chosen to take on Islam.
It's just an extension of women's rights. You just can't ignore the threat.
But is everything for you through the women lens then? What about male Muslims? Do you want to free them too? I know they haven't got their faces, and I've got all that, and I'm with you. But do you think Islam is restrictive and negative for men?
Possibly, but I'm a woman, so I see
The
everything.
same. I mean, I'm a man, you're a woman, but I still care about you, and I care deeply about women's issues.
Yes, but Islam impacts women in a far worse way than it impacts men.
Well, it depends which men. Non-Muslim men. I mean, Islam impacts Jews quite heavily,
Yes.
for example, and Islam impacts at its worst moments men and women in Islamic terror attacks. And on the 7th of October, Islam impacted 1,200 people of every nationality virtually, and both genders. So I'm not meaning to be difficult, but I do see that you see things through the lens of freeing women from restrictions. But isn't that in itself quite tribal by gender? Isn't that in itself quite restricted? Why not go the whole hog?
Well, because you can't solve everything. And if you don't focus on something, then you get nothing achieved whatsoever. So by virtue of freeing women, I free their children, and their children are boys. And I also free them entirely. Like, if you look at any society and you look at the way that they treat women, that is also how they treat children and how they treat each other. So by extension of liberating a woman, then you liberate the entire society. But, men often think about other men. And I do get it, because I really don't like the idea of like the whining and there's so many issues I don't think are important. I don't care about spreading or mansplaining, or I don't care about those things. And I think there should be men's rights activists looking at You know, maybe men can look at how to free men from Islam, and maybe men can focus on things like male suicide and all those other things that, and I have 3 sons, you know, and a husband.
A lot of men in your life.
I have a lot of men in my life and I love them dearly, and I've always found it easier to relate to men. I probably like more men in my actual real life than I like women. I find women really quite difficult. Women are the ones that have brought about so much of the crap that I now fight. Like, it's women that do it. Women are opening the doors to men in our spaces. It's not your average kind of, it's not your average man going, well, you know what, I think Dave should go in the women's. It's not them. It's the women going, oh no, it's absolutely fine. It's so, why don't you come in? So I'm not under any illusion about women. I'm just a women's rights campaigner, and by extension of what I've looked at, which men weren't really that bothered about because it didn't impact them so much. It was women that were being impacted by transgenderism and are still. That's why I sort of looked at free your face and women. So I get it, but you know, I'm a woman.
Are you basically a sort of old-fashioned conservative, you know, like Mary Whitehouse or something?
I'm actually born on her birthday. So yeah.
Reincarnation.
Well, I think actually we look back and she was right.
But are you a
On a lot.
prude generally about things?
What do you mean by that?
I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of your positions are quite sort of traditional and old-fashioned, let's put it that way. And, you know, the image you put out is sort of old school Marilyn Monroe style kind of, it's glam, but conservative. You're not conservatively dressed, but you're not in it.
I haven't got
kind
a
of,
plunging
the right word.
neckline.
Yeah, you don't,
Yeah.
you know, you don't flaunt sexuality. You seem to have a sense of traditional values. You kind of want to be a believer. You wear a cross, but you're not really identifying yourself as a religious Christian. These are quite traditional, old school things. I mean, I could imagine you in a pearl necklace and a, you know, a slightly quieter color. Am I wrong? Is that part of what's behind all this?
Yes, probably. I think everyone should have the freedom to do whatever they want in their own homes. And I think when you come out onto the street, you have a deal with the rest of us that you're going to behave in a particular way.
What's the particular way though? Is it the majorities or the traditional way, or what is that particular
Well,
way?
I think it's like we could put it in an analogy of speaking. So I think you should have the freedom to say what you like, but that doesn't mean you get to sit next to me and shout in my ear, right? Like, we all accept if we're on a train, we don't want to hear someone's music, but we don't mind them listening to music. I just don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your loud conversation. I think we all get along if we're all a little bit quieter about everything to do with ourselves.
Yeah, it reminds me actually of something Yasmin Mohammed again said to me. She said she read all these stories about how in Britain there were people saying at work, I'm fasting for Ramadan, I don't want to see your sandwich, even though you're not Muslim. Isn't that the same thing?
Is it the same? No. No, that's not the same thing, is it? Because that's a minority. That's a minority view.
So it's about the
Opposing
majority.
it. Yeah.
Okay, got you. So basically minorities are all right and should be allowed to do what they like.
Yes.
So they ought to respect the majority's norms where
Yes.
they're doing it. So in an Islamic country, would you wear a head covering?
I wouldn't go
Okay.
on the basis that I wouldn't wear one.
Right, because it would be disrespectful not
Yeah.
to wear one while you're there.
Yes.
Fair enough. That sounds, you know, completely consistent and interesting, actually. Not maybe what I would have expected you to say. Sorry for the sort of interrogation. That's just because, I mean, it's not often that you get to meet someone who is so, you know, clear. And I think that's one of the reasons you're very popular among the areas where you are, is that you're very clear, very to the point, and you make a lot of sense. So that is interesting to me. Another topic I want to discuss with you is homosexuality. Because if you are a bit of a Mary Whitehouse or a bit of a prude, and trans issues have been lumped with homosexuality, though I think that's completely wrong myself. I'm curious what your views on those things are. Are they equally as traditional?
No. 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 I don't care what anybody does in there. Like, I think essentially homophobia just comes down to what two people do intimately with each other. And why is that in it? It's none of my business.
Well, I mean things like gay marriage.
No, I think you should be able to get married. I don't
And it should be called marriage.
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay.
It doesn't impact me at all.
Should gay people be able to have children?
Yes, adopt. Or that, there's some people. I don't agree with donor conception for lesbian couples
Straight
either.
couples?
No, neither.
So if
Not at all.
really,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. If a straight couple, man and woman, couldn't have their own children, even with IVF, using their own sperm and egg, you wouldn't be in favour of them using a donor. Why is that?
Because I think a child has a right to both of their parents. Now, that doesn't mean, what that means is, you don't have the right to create a life knowing that they are not going to have connections to their biological parents. I just don't, I don't see why anybody would think that that was okay. And that goes for, I have views on the Kardashians having surrogates and famous people having surrogates, like women, like, you wait until you were 48. Of course you can't have babies. Like, that swings and roundabouts. You either, you have to do these things when you're younger. I recommend finding someone you love and having babies, when you're young enough to run after them. And when you're young enough that when they get to be teenagers, you've got the patience to deal with
I
it.
mean, you spoke earlier about that very natural urge. I mean, you were speaking about it in the context of male sexuality, but you said it's a natural urge to procreate.
Yes.
And I think the point is that even, homosexual men, for example, they have sexuality, famously.
Yeah, really.
But part of that is, it's not just because they're dirty men and they like having sex.
Yeah.
It's because actually a lot of men also have an urge to procreate.
Yeah.
And it can actually be quite a nice, wholesome urge. And yet when you have two gay men who might be nurturing, kind, loving people, they obviously can't have a child naturally. And you're saying that it's more important, I guess, that the child knows their biological two parents than the urge for those men to have a child.
I'm saying that the important part of having a child is the child.
Yeah.
And I think that people lose sight of that. Now, what we do know from surrogacy, for example, so adoptees, we accept that they might have attachment disorders and that they may feel rejected by their parents, no matter how amazing that home is, because fundamental bonding between parents and children, between biological parents and children, if you don't have that, you are likely to suffer something. And I know too many adoptees who feel rejected, even like in their 60s, and they find out that maybe their dad all along wasn't their dad, and then they didn't know who their dad was. Like, that can be traumatizing, and I think we underestimate the bond, and particularly if we look at, like, if two gay men want to become parents, there are loads of kids who need good, loving homes, who've been cast aside, who are in care homes.
And should they be homed with gay men
100%.
rather than a man and a woman?
I don't know if rather than. I think it's equal. I think that if two people come to there are too many children in care to be fussy about whether or not people are gay or straight. I don't think that really matters. Good parents is good, right? That's it. A loving home is a loving home. And for those children in care or adopted, 100% adopted. The children in care have such a horrendous time, and then at the end of it, they're just put on the scrap heap. At 18, that's it. There's no more support. So no, adopt is great. If we want to talk about surrogacy, we can talk about surrogacy. I'm going to give you my.
I do. I'd love to hear it. I love to hear them.
So in the last trimester of a baby in utero, they bond through the smells and of the bones of their mother and themselves. And then they're born. And then surrogacy says, let's rip that away from that primal bond, which I think is barbaric. But what you also do in that, so the baby's the most important thing there, and you're creating a life knowing that the first moments of its life you will inflict the most horrendous trauma on their baby, which is taking them from their mother. In addition to that, you are renting the womb, and we call it in this country altruistic surrogacy, which is not true, because that person will be compensated. And so we're renting a woman's womb and then we are traumatizing a brand new baby. And then what happens when, let's say it's a little girl, and then she grows up, and then she realizes that what her two dads did was rent somebody's womb with the express kind of purpose of taking that baby away. I don't see. It's the same as all the other things we're doing. It's the separating the human from humanity at that point. And there are many other ways to do it. You could find, like a gay couple could find a lesbian couple, and then you kind of do something where you share parentage, and then that lucky child gets 4 parents.
You don't think that's going to f you up more?
I don't think it'll f you up more than your father's renting a woman's womb to take you from it. I think having bonds with your biological parents, I think we are crazy if we don't consider just how strong those bonds are, and should be. Like,
Yeah.
that's why you don't kill your babies. Just to speak as a mother, and I do think mothers are really, really important. So optimum for me is a mother has a baby and keeps that baby, and the other person in that household is a man that she's in love with. That would be optimum. Not
Agreed.
if they're both abusive, not, but optimum, all things being equal. Second to that is just a loving household of people that really love that child and want to spend time with it, and that's second. And I don't know if it really matters whether they're men or women, but obviously men and women are different, so you bring 2 different things into that child's life.
The sense that the sort of hierarchy in your mind of how it is, that the primary is man, woman, in love, loving home, nurturing child, genetic bond to those 2 people. So the smells and the last trimester of pregnancy are all ingrained and embedded in the child, and they continue that bond.
And the fact that before my baby would cry, my breasts would leak.
Yeah.
That bond between a mother and a baby, you can't.
That's actually why I'm really fascinated by the kind of line in your distinction, because again, it's like many things Kellie-Jay focused. It's very clear. It's a really sharp line you've drawn.
Yes.
Which is, you don't mind 2 men bringing up a child. You just do mind how they got that child.
Yes.
If it's a child that needed parents, that's all right. Doesn't matter that there's no one's breasts are going to leak when the baby cries.
Yep.
There's no matter that child doesn't have a woman in their life. You don't mind.
No.
How are you so certain that that's the right place for the line?
Well, one is kind of beyond us. It's not like a rational thing. It's an instinctive thing. It's watching a puppy. It's watching a dog have puppies, and babies know how to be babies better than mothers know how to be mothers. Like your baby knows better. Like when they're hungry, when they're tired. Like that's what your baby brings to this. And I just think the further we get from those bonds, like it's such a basic bond, but the further we get from that, the more quickly we descend into just kind of like, what's next? Should we have uteruses outside? Should we grow babies in like incubators? Like a mother's really, really important. And if you don't respect that and you don't appreciate it, then I think we're in real trouble. So I think maybe
it's about women again.
I think it is about women, but the most messed up people in society will be the people with the most broken bonds with their mother. Like, I can squirt my children much more than my husband. I think they did a study, and women will wake at night if a baby makes a slight noise. Like, we'll wake up like that. Our husbands will wake up if there's a noise outside, but might not hear a baby cry. Like, we are so much more informed by thousands upon thousands of years of genes and instinct than we are by what we would like to be true. And so I guess I'm informed by that.
Brilliant answer. And just before we finish, what does all this make you? Are you an activist, a politician, a campaigner, mum, woman?
Well, it definitely makes me a woman. I think I was that before. And definitely a mum. And a very protective kind of, if you touch my children, I'll kill you kind of mum. I'm definitely one of those. I don't know what it makes me. An activist. My children take the piss out of me and they call me a global icon. But that's because they they want to annoy me. And it's a big joke. They'll come up to me in the public and they'll go, "Excuse me, are you Posie Parker?" It's so great. But yes, I don't know what it makes me, but it makes me someone in pursuit of something beyond myself. Maybe it makes me someone who doesn't have religion.
Well, I think they're very lucky to have a global icon as a mum, this global icon especially. So to Posie Parker, Kellie-Jay, thank you. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. It's been fascinating.
Yeah, it's been great.